morning, everyone. I have spent the better part of these past few days thinking about and trying to process the horrific event that occurred in our city, in my neighborhood, in my community this past weekend. While I've certainly wrestled with all of the dark, sad, and devastating themes, I am, by nature, someone who looks for the good in people and situations. How people process tragedy and grief varies greatly. I have seen this week those who process by crying, by writing, by taking action. I have seen friends process by talking, by protesting, by being quiet, by pushing their emotions aside, by staying busy, by eating ice cream. I've chosen to spend some time reflecting on my life in Pittsburgh, the beauty and grace of my community, and I'm thankful to be able to share some of this with you today. So much has been written by others that captures the emotions of the events of this week, most notably a deep and profound sadness for the lives that were lost. For this neighborhood, my neighborhood of Squirrel Hill, this community, the loss is deeply personal and shocking, even if you never stepped foot inside Tree of Life or knew any of those who were killed. Most in this community, regardless of faith or background, regularly passes Tree of Life, has participated in an event there, or knows someone connected somehow to the synagogue. And even if they don't, they know a place that serves a similar function in their lives: a synagogue, a church, a school. The extreme shock that we are all feeling comes from the loss of sanctity of these places as a safe place for neighbors to come together. When we moved to our street, just blocks away from Tree of Life, we joined families, couples, and single people who range in age from students through the elderly. On our first day in our new home, one of our neighbors brought us the classic Pittsburgh dessert, a Prantle's burnt almond torte. And we realized for the first time that neighborhoods like Squirrel Hill aren't just in movies. Our neighbors are observant Jews and non-observant Jews, Christians, Muslims, and people with no religion at all. There are families who have been in Squirrel Hill for generations, and others who have been in this country mere days. The Carnegie Mellon University cross-country and track athletes regularly practice in the middle of our street, while others care for their grandchildren, parents, pets, and each other. We walk to our farmers market on Sundays to buy produce, but also to see our friends and community. And we jump in when shoveling snow to help out others when needed. If you are lucky, like I have been, you will come to a point where you have full and complete control over where you live. My husband and I could have chosen to live anywhere in this world, but chose to and will continue to live in Squirrel Hill. Not just because we have parents, aunts, and uncles in and around the neighborhood, and not just because there is a large, vibrant Jewish community here, and not just because there are numerous parks and playgrounds for our children to play at within walking distance. We're drawn to the diversity of this community and the level of grace and respect with which neighbors treat each other. We're a community of families who take to heart what it means to literally be living in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood and try to continue his legacy in the way we live and treat each other on a daily basis with civility and kindness. In Jewish tradition, there's a designated week-long mourning period called Shiva, which in Hebrew is the word for the number 7. This is a designated space created for grieving. It's a time to remember that we have the support of others during times of need. During these times, I have found comfort in hearing the words and stories of others, and it is my hope that whatever you are feeling, you are reminded that you are not alone.
Joyce was a research specialist at the University of Pittsburgh's Learning and Research Development Center prior to her retirement in 2008. Joyce was kind. Joyce was compassionate. Joyce had a soft voice and a big heart. Predeceased by her husband, Stephen, Joyce is survived by her sons, Anthony and Howard, and her grandchildren. May her memory be a blessing.
Dr. Richard Godfrey was a family friend of ours for over 35 years. He was deeply committed to the New Life congregation at Treeland. Dick and his wife, Peg, had their own dental office in Westview. Together, they participated in many volunteer activities, one of which included Catholic Charities' free dental clinic. Dick loved his family, enjoyed his friendships, knew his patients, golfed for many years with my husband, and attended every Pitt Panther home football game with his sister Carol. May his memory be a blessing.
Rose Mallinger was a 97-year-old from Squirrel Hill. She was a devoted member of the congregation at Tree of Life. Some news outlets initially reported erroneously that Mallinger was a Holocaust survivor, but she was a native of Squirrel Hill, though she was a young woman during the time of the Holocaust. She is survived by her daughter, Andrea Wedner, who was among those wounded in the attack at Tree of Life, and her son, Alan. May her memory be a blessing.
Jerry Rabinovitz was an Ish Sadiq, a righteous man, a family doctor, a family man. He didn't have children, but one member of the congregation remembers that it took her years to realize that he didn't have kids because he gave so much love to the children at Dor Hadash. He would always take the time to talk with his patients. His nephew said Jerry welcomed his patients as part of his family. "Be well, my friend," he would say to his patients at the end of an appointment, giving them a hug. "Thank you, Dr. Rabinovitz, for all the happiness you offered to the Pittsburgh community. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may his memory be a blessing."
Cecil and David were recalled as gentle giants, two of the sweetest human beings you could ever meet. They were fixtures at my Tree of Life synagogue and in my Squirrel Hill community. As they made their way daily to the synagogue or the Jewish community center, they lived life unencumbered by societal norms. David, 54, quiet and reserved, had a fascination for law enforcement. Cecil, 59, social and outgoing, was the town crier, the unofficial mayor of Squirrel Hill. Our lives were more enriched by them than their lives were by ours, and they both loved to party, and they want you to celebrate their life, and may their memory be a blessing.
Bernice Simon, 84, was a former nurse who was known in her community for doing charitable work. Her husband, Sylvan Simon, was 86, and he was a Vietnam War veteran and an accountant prior to his retirement. The two were married in 1956 at the Tree of Life Synagogue, the very same synagogue where they spent their last moments together. And the neighbors noted that the couple would always hold hands as they walked around the neighborhood. Additionally, Bernice and Sylvan Simon were the beloved grandparents of my boyfriend, Malone Simon. May their memory be a blessing.
Daniel Stein, 71, was a leader at the New Light congregation. Fellow congregant, Barton Shaster, said of Stein, "You can call on him for a tough task, and he'll do it without looking for a pat on the back or a plaque or anything." Mr. Stein had recently become a grandfather. May his memory be a blessing.
Melvin Wax, 88, was an accountant prior to his retirement, as well as a father and a grandfather. An active member of the Jewish Community Center, he was leading Shabbat services at Tree of Life when the shooting began. May his memory be a blessing.
Irving Younger, 69, was a regular at Tree of Life services and an enthusiastic volunteer, greeting visitors to the synagogue and helping them get settled. He ran a Pittsburgh real estate company and coached youth baseball. The former president of the Tree of Life Synagogue said of Mr. Younger that he would never walk away from anyone. May his memory be a blessing.
Earlier in the week, we were reminded that the strongest single word to get us through times like this is the word love. And I asked Max to read the text of the piece we're going to sing for you now.
Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it.
I submitted this as a letter to the editor for the Post-Gazette, and I will share it with you now. Tragic events of this weekend have given me a new perspective on a high school memory. In my junior year of high school, my friends and I were taking the PSAT. We were making our way through that first page of biographical information, filling out bubbles for our names, addresses, and so on. Two of my friends, Jason and Joel, both of whom are Jewish, were sitting next to each other. When Joel got to the question about racial ethnic identity, he asked Jason, "What did you answer?" Jason, unsure why there would be any question, replied, "White. What did you put?" Joel answered, "Other." Jason, amused and confused, asked, "Why?" And Joel answered, "Because I'm Jewish." Jason laughed and shared Joel's answer with the rest of us after the test, and we all laughed as well. For years after the PSAT, we enjoyed kidding Joel about how he had identified himself. The distinction seemed unnecessary, inconsistent with how we viewed one another. Saturday's events offered the most painful way in which Joel was right. To Robert Bowers, Jews were an other, an object of hate to be targeted for murder. Police investigation of Bowers' background exposed a chilling community of hate in which Jews and other groups have been objectified and vilified as an other. The high school memory that had brought me and my friends only amusement now has a poignancy that I never would have imagined. I also will hold on to the memory with hope, however. We laughed at Joel's answer because none of us thought of our Jewish friends as others. They were our classmates, our teammates. We studied together in classes, we ran together on the cross-country team. Their Jewish identity did not compromise their place in our relationship. It became a part of it. In the years since high school, we made squares for the tapestry of a chuppah at a wedding. We held children high in the air at a bar mitzvah. We shared the milestones of life with one another and celebrated their rituals, whether they were Jewish, Catholic, or Greek Orthodox. In the wake of Saturday's tragedy, we need to embrace our Jewish friends and neighbors and assure them they are not an other. In fact, there is no other. I love my Jewish friends, and I weep today that anyone would not see them. Joel, Jason, Todd, and others as anything other than the wonderful husbands, fathers, professionals, and dear friends that they are. I will not be able to think of Joel's PSAT answer now without feeling a little pain, but I want to try to maintain the reason we thought it was unnecessary.
Good morning. I'm Mr. Weiss, and I live in Squirrel Hill. My family and I live in the house that my wife grew up in, and where our families lived for almost 50 years. So this past week has been a difficult one. And I don't know about you, but I haven't been very productive this week. In my case, that's not particularly unusual. But it's been more pronounced in recent days than I can remember. Of course, like a lot of you, I've been distracted and distressed. It doesn't take my mind long to wander from whatever paper I'm trying to grade or lesson I'm trying to plan to the dreadful events of last Saturday. There's an irony in that what we might rightly call unthinkable, we cannot stop thinking about. I would also say that there have been more welcome distractions. The outpouring of love and support from our immediate community to the victims and their families, from many of you who are not Jewish or from Squirrel Hill to those of us who are, and from the nation and indeed the entire world to our city, has been genuinely moving. I've sometimes wondered whether the gestures I see online at times like these, the special profile pictures, tweets in solidarity with people struck by tragedy, are just trite and empty ones designed to make those of us who make them feel good, but I don't believe that now. They are small acts of solidarity, but they make a difference. I have felt, so to speak, the arms of the nation and the world wrapped around our community and our city almost as palpably as I have felt the arms of my friends and neighbors and colleagues wrapped around me and mine around them. And that has lifted me. But it has also exhausted me. And the sleep I have lost reading emails and texts and posts and fielding calls has taken a toll. All of this is part of the reason I think we find it hard to turn our minds to work. But there's another reason that I want to address this morning. In times like these, it is easy to feel like our work here doesn't matter, that it is meaningless compared to the life and death issues swirling around us. What does it matter, we may ask ourselves? Why Macbeth did whatever he did, or Muhammad did whatever he did, or this chemical compound did whatever it did, when people are being gunned down in houses of prayer? How can I immerse myself in this world of abstractions when the real world is crying out in 100 kinds of agony, in a billion different voices? What does it matter? If you feel this way, I understand and I share your feelings. I think that for some of us, we simply want to retreat from this chaos and madness, so little of which we can control, and that is perfectly understandable and sometimes necessary. For some of us, however, we want to do something, anything, to make it better. We Jews have a concept for this. It is called tikkun olam, and it means to repair the world. To repair the world means to bind its wounds, to ease its pain, to rebuild where there has been destruction, to make fruitful land that has been barren, to push love into every dark corner befouled by hate. The Torah tells us it is not your obligation to complete this work, but neither are you free to desist from it. Many of us feel compelled to do this work and to do it now, and so we should. And your studies, my job, they do not always feel like this work, this repairing the world, especially not now. But I would argue that they are. Please believe me when I tell you that your work is important, that we need you to be scholars, to be learners, not just for the usual reasons, to get into college, to get a job, but for much higher reasons. Your scholarship will help make you people capable of repairing the world. In some disciplines, this is an easy case to make, starting with my own. History helps us understand how we got to where we are. The past is full of warnings and lessons, few of them easy, but all of them essential. History is your ancestors giving you a light from their world to illuminate your own. English, drama, and art help us understand the human soul, what motivates it, what it needs, and how it can be shaped toward good or twisted toward evil. Greater truths may be told through literature and the arts than can be spoken in any sworn testimony before any court. And these disciplines are dedicated to the propagation of truth and beauty, even in the darkest times, the darkest places. World languages make friends of strangers. They might make us out of people who might otherwise be them. And heaven knows we need more us and less them at this time. But what of math, science, these seemingly hard-headed, often abstract subjects? They sometimes seem so removed from the desperate dramas in which we know we must play a role. How can they help us? I would argue they may be the most essential, for these are the disciplines most dedicated to reason. And reason is indispensable if we are to combat the forces of ignorance, hatred, suspicion, and baseless conspiracy threatening to tear us apart, actively tearing us apart. There is, of course, a practical and tangible role math and science can play in making a brighter future. People my age live in a world where every day we rely on devices, some we can hold in our hands and some we cannot see or may not even know about, that we could not have been able to imagine when we were people your age. But technology can produce problems as well as solve them. Reason, then, is the greatest gift these disciplines have to offer. They train our minds to demand facts, to insist that proposals make sense, to be bold and imaginative in envisioning what might be, but methodical in making what we imagine into reality. It was reason that banished darkness, literally, and brought us light. And it is reason that banishes the darkness of racism and prejudice and reveals to us the scientific truth of our common humanity. In the television drama House of Cards, the deeply cynical politician who is the main character turns directly to the camera, speaking to the unseen audience, to us. and smirks and says, "Welcome to the death of the age of reason." Well, I am not ready to let the age of reason go so quickly, and I am counting on you to make sure we continue to live in an age of reason. You will do this in many ways, but the work you do here and now will ground you in reason, that precious and fragile but mighty commodity. So it is hard, I know, to turn your mind to work. It is hard for me to turn my mind to my own, but let us commit to it. I ask you this not as a teacher, not as a parent, but as a person of my generation, ready to pass the torch of leadership in this world to yours. I have faith in you. And along with my colleagues, I will do my best to prepare you so we can step in line behind you and follow you into a better and brighter day. Shalom, my friends. Peace to all of you. You are dismissed.